fighting for their country, fighting for our freedoms. And 1.2 million is a number that's thrown around all the time. When we talk about our national debt, my goodness, we talk about numbers much larger than that. How many of you have been in the Metrodome for a football game or have seen a football game at the Metrodome? Raise your hand. Okay. Imagine the Metrodome filled up, full house, not an empty seat in the Metrodome. Fill it up 20 times, and that's how many people have died. So we have these freedoms. And then take and multiply that by at least 20. And that's how many people have made major sacrifices serving in our military to protect these freedoms for us. And we cannot ever do anything to show our gratitude properly, because we literally owe our lives to those people. We think about the young people today. Think about the heroes they have. If we were to ask for heroes, we'd probably mention some movie star, perhaps some professional athlete, maybe, though probably not, a politician. You know who my heroes are? My hero is Colonel Dean right here, who served us in World War II. My heroes are the veterans here. My hero is my father, who passed away a couple of years ago. He was a college student at the University of Minnesota. He was 19 years old. He was studying accounting. He was not a warrior. He was a peace-loving person. But that was the beginning of World War II. And he served in our military. He was a B-17 pilot flying from England over Germany. He knew that every time there was a mission, when they would wake up in the morning, they'd meet in a room like this, they'd find out how many of our airplanes could fly that day, and that's how many airplanes would take off to try to hit some target in Germany. And they also knew that it was very likely that not all of those planes would return home that night. On one mission, 17 planes took off. Only 9 of them came home. 8 of them were shot down. In each of those 8 planes that were shot down, there were 10 Americans. They were either killed or they were held as POWs for the remainder of the war. Yet every morning they did that. Every morning they would get up and they knew that 1 or 2 or 5 or 8 of their planes would be shot down and not come home that night. Dad flew 25 missions. He beat the odds. He was not shot down. He came home. And I said, Dad, you were a hero in World War II. He said, I wasn't a hero. I was an average American citizen doing my job to protect my country. Well, he was too a hero. He was too. And today's military is totally different than the military we've had in the past. In the past, we had a military that was very, very large. Today, we have a very small one. When I speak to a group, as I did yesterday, a group of people who were in their 50s and 60s and 70s, and I asked them, how many of you served in the military? Almost every hand in the room went up. Today, when I talk to a group of young people in their 20s and ask them how many people had served in the military, 1 or 2 or 3 hands will go up. And that's okay. We don't need a large military anymore. Today, we have a very high technology military, but there's something that's really different. Every single person in our military today is a volunteer. Every single one of them. And these young men and women, and I say women because 20% of them are women, are defending us just as our fathers and uncles and others did during World War II. Right now, we have almost 2,000 Minnesotans who are serving us in Iraq or in Afghanistan. Not nearly as many get killed anymore, fortunately, though still many do. Many of them come home missing an arm, missing a leg, or with severe injuries. But every one of them is making a huge sacrifice, and every one of their families are making huge sacrifices. Remember last summer when it got over 90 one day? We're saying, oh man, it's hot, terrible. We went from our air-conditioned house to our air-conditioned car to our air-conditioned school or office. The young men and women in Iraq, it was 120 degrees, and they were wearing full body armor, and they didn't have an air-conditioned place to go. And they were facing great danger, and they knew that some of their friends would not be coming home, and others would be coming home missing an arm or a leg. And they are volunteers. And they would miss birthday parties back home. And they would miss graduations, and they would miss Christmas. They would miss the birth of their son or daughter. Sometimes they would miss a wedding. Sometimes it was their own wedding that would be delayed because they were serving. Their families back home miss them. Many of these people are in the Garden Reserve. Their employers miss them, and they miss all of these things. And they are doing it to protect the freedoms that we talked about earlier. The best war this nation ever fought was the Cold War with Russia. I would go to an Air Force base, a Strategic Air Command base. It might be in North Dakota at Minot. It might be in South Dakota at Ellsworth. And there'd be a big sign at the entrance of the base. And it would say, "Welcome to Ellsworth Air Force Base. Peace is our profession." I thought, what a strange thing to have on the sign at the entrance to the base, knowing that inside that base are enough nuclear weapons to blow up half of the world. Peace is our profession. But we won the Cold War with Russia because we were strong and we didn't have to fire a shot. That's the best kind of war to fight. We hope not to fight wars. We hope they will end. Unfortunately, they probably never will. But to defend the freedom of this nation, to defend all of the things that these people have fought for, we need to remember them, to thank them, to show appreciation to them, to honor them, and to remember them. And I know that someday some of you will choose to put on the uniform of your nation, or you will choose to serve our nation in some other way. It's a great nation, and we all owe something to it. But we wouldn't have that opportunity had it not been for the veterans of the past. So we salute you, Colonel Day, we salute you, Dean, I'm sorry, Dean. It's a great nation, and our future is yours, and we expect you to preserve and protect our nation into the future. Thank you very much for inviting me today.